Well, 2 down,
All right.
4 to go. Matt, will you billboard our next one? And I believe I start us.
You do. Yeah. Okay. So this is the Pop Group with their album Y, like the letter Y. It comes in at number 247 in the 1970s on Best Ever Albums, number 20 in 1979, number 1,102 of all time. It is their highest rated album on Best Ever Albums. It did not make Rolling Stones list, and so now we're in the realm of the 1001 albums we need to hear before we die. Correct?
You got it. Every
All
one
right.
of the rest of them were on there, and only the B-52s were both on that. So
Okay.
boy, this was a whole lot of album. This album, it's well. Let me start by this. I did not dislike this album. I was very interested by this album. I think one of the reasons I was interested by this album was that it was avant-garde in a way that I could find through lines, both the things that interested me, but also to bands that I enjoy who took parts of this and maybe created albums that I liked better than how it came out on this way. But it was like seeing a rough draft for, and I've compared other groups, some of the noise rock groups I like, but yeah, this is a real clear. I always love in all music when they have like terms to describe an album, right? And like sometimes it's like, I don't really hear that. You know what I mean? Like this week we did that Residence Eskimo and they said humorous. I'm like, really interesting. I didn't pick that. But this one, the first couple words were confrontational, uncompromising, hostile, fiery, difficult, harsh, visceral, malevolent. And I was like, that's
Yep.
If you didn't listen to this album and I just threw that, usually when you give a whole bunch of adjectives, it's like, it's just too much, like whatever. But I feel like to some degree, hearing those words gives you a sonic template of what this album is like, because this, I think it's funny they're called the Pop Group because they're most decidedly not
advertising,
and clearly I think also by design, you know what I mean, like to call stuff that. So we've got a vocalist who, much like Pere Ubu, right, is an interesting listen. I would say he's going back and forth between sort of mumbling, I'd say a little bit, and like shrieking. Kind of like Suicide as well was another group that, was kind of like that. There's an urgency to how he screamed that I was interested in it didn't turn me off necessarily, but it wasn't pleasant either. But I was interested. It interested me enough that I paid very close attention to the lyrics because I wanted to see what they were going for there. There's a sonic underlying on this album that's very consistent. Like there's like a rhythm section almost that pulses through this album. Not quite like a heartbeat. There also is weird, like from time to time, like funk bass, like rhythms, which come out of nowhere. And you're like, whoa, where'd that funk bass come from?
then they go away.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They come and then they disappear. And the thing I would compare this most to is like the jazz we did in the 60s, like some of the jazz, like the Eric Dolphy jazz,
the free jazz,
the free jazz, exactly. That is what I felt sonically. This was most, and I keep saying sonically, and I don't want to sound, but the reason I'm saying sonically is because this album at times assaults your ears, and then every once in a while becomes appealing to your ears. But by design, I think there is almost no desire to stay in the appealing part for too long, I think, by design. So there we go. I heard this album also called an assaultive album, which is another great term because I do think it's designed to just punch you in the face right off the bat, but not in like a, that visceral sort of like brawling hard rock, punk, heavy. This is more like, it's just like a full out shove you down on the ground type sound. But then it picks you back up only to like shove you back down again. So yeah, I'm curious to hear what you guys think of this album. I think it's Josh, right?
Josh,
yeah. It's I'm stunned to silence. So we already name checked this artist, but it reminded me of Captain Beefheart a lot. it also evoked jazz in the way that there's like wild shifts in tone and instruments that they're using. I think it plays with you because at first I heard that funk like right off the bat, and there's some good bass lines too in that, and the percussion throughout is good. I thought it was going to be like Modest Mouse or something at first with the way that the lead singer was delivering the lines, but then it like really takes a hard right turn into other things, and it never lets you. There's no steady rhythm on this. There's no sort of way to keep your footing throughout, and the album kind of wore me down as a result of that, listening to it. I would say it is confrontational. I thought it was discordant and in times like too intense for me, especially with the screaming. And it's not like a long like low scream. It's like the scream like you're getting murdered type of screaming, and that like rarely works for me in music. Those short panic screams are another thing that happens throughout in this, and it doesn't. It's designed to push you away, and kind of it succeeded on that front. It also kind of in the lyrical department reminded me of the Doors some. I think it was trying to be abstract or poetic in that way with what they were trying to say. I would also describe it as kind of like acid rock type of music. There's a sense of the desert or the vastness in the way Captain Beefheart also evoked in that. So it was hard to get through. I didn't enjoy it. I won't listen to it again. Unfortunately, I mean, I appreciate that we listened to it like the Residents. It is in that column of music that like I can now put on one end of the spectrum in terms of, comparing it to other things or knowing where other groups in the noise rock genre especially probably heard this and were influenced by, but it's not something foundational for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I hated this. It's all those adjectives that you guys use that you read from that. Was it from All Music or whatever, John? It's very true. This is a rare album where I know a lot of times we talk about the cold listens where it's like I need to listen to this more to try to get it, or like I definitely found like myself. I think I would like this after multiple listens. It didn't take me very long to realize that I don't think I was ever, no matter how many listens, I wasn't going to get into this. I barely got through this record. It's very tough. It's all those things. You guys had a lot of descriptions of what it sounds like. Sherry had a good description herself. She's like, I feel like I'm like walking through an insane asylum, and it's just like one of the, it's just people like, ah! So yeah, it's just, yes, is it may be influential to certain bands that ran with this in a more of maybe a traditional way or incorporated some more avant-garde elements into their music? Yeah, probably. And for that, I'm thankful for that. I can't go so far as to say that this sucks or something like that. It's just clearly not my thing. There was some promise. I think you guys alluded to this in the very beginning. I think, was it Thief of Fires, the opening track, and that looks like that's got the most listens. Maybe that was I don't know if there were singles on this or not, but that one's got that.
There were not.
Okay, so that one's got a little bit of that bass groove going on, and there were elements of that. I was like, okay, that's, even though there's all this chaotic, stuff going on in the background, there was still like somewhat of a foundational bass line that was going through that. So that's a track that I was like, okay, all right, and then it really didn't hit on something like that again, and if it did, it was for a very short period of time, and then like you said, it just kind of went into a different direction. So this is tough for me. I'm always curious as to like, so if you're an artist and you are like a musician and this is like we're going to get together and this is what we're going to create, I'm kind of fascinated as to like what they're going for, what they're, is it purposefully going into like, we're just trying to mess with people? Is that like the main purpose? We're going to try to screw with you? Because I'm sure that there are artists like that are just trying to be either controversial or provocative just to do that. Or is this something that there's like I don't know that like they're finding enjoyment out of. I would assume that there's got to be something that they're getting out of this as well beyond that. So it's so far removed from what I would do if I was going to do a band.
Yeah.
So
from what I was reading, they kind of like wanted to get like the punk rock ethos a little bit, and they had an interest in like dance music a little. I think that's where the funk came in. But they also kind of wanted to sonically get a little bit of the feel of like what radical politics were like. That came up a lot. And like many of these bands that make these albums, Matt, I think they strongly dislike that like traditional music, right? Traditional Western music. And the more we go through the 70s, there seem to be a lot of groups that we're covering that a big part of what they're trying to do sonically is escape from that 50s and 60s music sound. And I'm sure, you know what I mean, that this is like, let's take elements of music we like and sort of eschew traditional sounds.
So they're contrarian.
I think it's like, you know, a lot of artists want to make music that's provocative and difficult, right? And it's about, you know, I think all music evokes feelings, but there's the feelings that, you know, and maybe, Matt, what might happen, and I'm not going to say I love this album. I didn't dislike this album nearly as much as you guys. It's a hard listen, but it wasn't like I struggled to get through it. I was like, sort of, okay. Like, I kind of get what but I think a lot of people listen to music to feel, you know, one of the 4 or 5 easy feelings, right? You know, like aggressive, but in a safe way, happy, nostalgic, you know, maybe a little sad, but in a way that makes you feel relatable. Then there's the folks that are like, I'm not going for those. I'm going for, I want you to kind of be uneasy or fearful or, curious. And, you know, and some people I think want their music to be uncomfortable, right? And this definitely has that vibe, you know. I think it has a feel of challenging you. And
I'm not that cool. I like part of me wanted to be like, I wish I was kind of cool enough to like.
I don't know if it makes you cool.
You know what I mean.
It's just a different way to look at the world.
Yeah, but it's like it seems. I don't know. I could try to say like, oh, I'm seeing this here, and there was definitely parts throughout this that I could pinpoint. Like that was an interesting part. I could tell that that they're being creative, that they're going outside the box, and all these things. But as an overall whole, Josh, I think you had the best way to put it. It wore me down. You know, by the time like I barely got through this record, and I was just like, I don't need to go back to that. This is not. Yes, it was disturbing. I typically don't like to be disturbed. I like to be happy. So I go for the easy out. And, you know, and like I said before in other episodes where I think if it's challenging up to a certain extent, but then it's couched in something that I can, you know, hang my hat on, then that's like a great you know, marriage of the two, and I can get down with that. I found very little of that on this record. It was just all challenge for me.
So a general assumption here. So Josh, you can jump in if you feel this is incorrect, and Matt, you can too and stuff. But I would say of the three of us, Matt, to some degree, you lead I think all of us to some degree probably primarily lead with our head as opposed to our heart. But if anybody's going to challenge that nature, right, I think Matt would probably be the one, right? A little bit.
Yeah.
Would you say, Josh?
Like not just music, just so like across the board?
Kind of in terms of the most of, we all have our own things where we lead, right? But in terms
I'm definitely cerebral, if that's what you're implying.
Well, it's not even so much I just think it's like, so I think what it is one of the reasons I think I might respond to this more than you, Matt, is because if we were to say the following statement, I like a degree of conflict, I think I would be the most likely to say, yeah, I do actually. There's a lot of things that I think conflict is very productive, right? And if I were to say I like a certain amount of conflict, the person to least say that would be you, Matt, right?
Yeah.
Of all of us. And then Josh is kind of like right in the middle of us, right?
Yeah.
And so do you think that's kind of what this album is?
I don't know.
It's like
Josh,
this album's conflict.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Josh, do you like conflict more than I do? I don't know. I guess I don't like conflict much at all.
I'm conflict avoidant, but if somebody pushes me, I'm going to...
Oh, you're going to fight. Okay.
I don't look at either of you guys as liking conflict, but I think Josh is more likely to not if it needs to be done.
I think that's
right.
I think that's fair. I think that's
Yeah,
fair.
I mean,
that's a
and-
good way
and-
of putting it, because this is very there's a lot of
And I am sometimes conflict searching at times. You know what I mean? I actually
You are?
like an album, So an album like this, which is why it's so funny that like the most strong reactions to our takes are your guys' takes. Whenever I do a strong take that I think is going to be there, people are like, I don't agree with you at all, but I can see the logic of what you're saying. And then you guys who are much nicer and conflict of voice, it's like that one guy's an idiot because he said that. So it always makes you. But I guess what I'm getting at is I wasn't disturbed by this, and maybe it's because there's a part of me that's like, let me see your conflict here. Let me meet your conflict. Does it appeal to me, or do I reject it? And I don't know. I'm not saying that I'm deeper in insight, Matt. I think it's more like a personality thing as opposed to an intelligence thing.
It's, I mean, to be fair, like 95% of the albums that we talk about on our show are not quote unquote difficult to listen to. I mean, they are for the most part melodic and things we've heard before,
rhythmic,
or in traditional Western music. So it's, this is not par for the course, and it's good to kind of push ourselves in that way, listening to different types of music.
One thing I thought very interesting, the one I said there wasn't a single, Matt, there was a single. It was She Is Beyond Good and Evil. Want to hear something pretty incredible?
Okay.
That single was released on March 2nd, 1979, my friend.
Oh, there you go. Happy birthday.
That's crazy.
That would be how many years ago? 79 would be 43 years ago. Yes, 43 years ago.
That's almost your, almost.
Almost. Mm-hmm.
Wow,
So
it's interesting.
it's pretty crazy to think about, isn't it?
Oh, that is the opening. Okay, so this I must have read that wrong. 'Cause the song that I found a little bit of enjoyment in was that She Is Beyond Good and Evil. But I guess on the Wikipedia, the original album, the song called Thief and Fire was the first track. So
switch 'em. Yeah.
another one of those re-release kind of things, I think.
Yeah.
So
Oh, there we go. So I'm hearing two pretty significant thumbs down.
Yeah.
And I would say thumbs in the middle for me, but with a if you don't mind being challenged. I can't say I recommend it, but give it a shot. But if you're a person who's like, I like my Matt did a great job of explaining the alternate to that. Like, I don't know if I need this, in my life, this type of, then this, you just skip it. You know what I mean? But if you're a person,
Or if you liked any of the things we kind of tried to compare it to, then I would say it's worth the.
Also, I'd say some of the groups that love, we haven't covered the Minutemen yet, but, when I heard they were fans of it, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Sonic Youth, Yola Tango and stuff, definitely you can see callbacks to that. I often heard Primal Scream mentioned quite a bit, who I'm not super familiar with, but they came up enough that if you would consider yourself a Primal Scream fan, I think they also...
Did we cover Primal Scream?
9 Inch Nails also loved it, which didn't surprise me at all, because this had a Trent Reznor vibe to it for sure.
Yeah, that's going to be a band that challenges me too. I'd never.
And I like 9 Inch Nails. So
I do like 9 Inch Nails too.
I mean, I like Trent Reznor's movie scores and stuff. So, but never really listened to 9 Inch Nails too much. But yeah, I can see that comparison.
Absolutely. All right.